All right, Mike.
How's it going?
Yeah, good, man. Good. How you doing?
Yeah, man, I'm good.
Sweet. It's like you've gone a bit blurry there, mate. Is that you in
That's
real
just
life or?
yeah, that's just me. I don't know. I woke up with a hangover this morning. Been blurry all day.
Are you doing that? You doing it on purpose? You're going a bit funny, man.
Uh, no. Um, hello.
You're just a bit wobbly. I can't tell whether it's just like my computer or that's what's actually broadcasting. Do you know what I mean? My
Hmm.
side seems okay. I don't know.
I think when you pressed stream, like, because you look quite blurry on mine as well. I think maybe when you started up the stream, maybe it slowed down a bit. It normally does at the very beginning,
Yeah, noticed
for it
that a
to
few times
stream.
now.
But
You,
how's it now?
yeah, fine. I can. The thing is, I can hear your voice. Fine. Do you know what I mean? So that's the main thing. So, mate, episode 6. I want to because I mean it's been around for a few years. Basically, I've been thinking about it for a little while. I remember I first heard about it, but it was definitely a while ago. And I'm sure on something like Star Trek, there was a thing where they could an item from composite material sort of thing. I think it might be Star Trek, but mate, it's fucking crazy. So like I was looking at it was a New Scientist article. They're calling it the second industrial revolution. And then there's a Harvard study they put out as well, saying basically the same sort of shit, that it's like it's going to revolutionize sort of culture and society in the same sort of way as the first industrial revolution did, and all the implications in that. But then I also read one that piqued my interest about 3D printing, where they'd started to grow food, or been able to print food, not grow it, obviously. But they printed this burger, and it cost like $200,000 and all this. It was a ridiculous amount of money, but it was like these synthetic protein fibers that you could eat in a burger, and somebody had made like a 6-ounce burger patty with it, and it was edible and apparently tasted all right and all the rest of it. So I started looking into it, and then I found out I went down the rabbit hole in 3D printing. And the second industrial revolution is, I mean, I know that it sounds drastic, and obviously that's one of them like clickbait titles and everything. It's one of them that's like exaggerated so that you click on it and you start thinking about it. But all the implications of 3D printing, like all the applications, all the shit that people are going to be able to do, like with a 3D printer, is absolutely mental. And in terms of it being a revolution, like it is absolutely going to be. It's going to be one of them things that I think anyway we're going to look back and say, printing or before the era of 3D printing.
Yeah.
That's how we're going to start to see it. That is crazy, man. Have you heard much about it? Or have you seen things?
Yeah, so I've seen one in action. They've got one in a shop called Pinder's, like an arts and crafts kind of place.
Oh, Sheffield, yeah, I've seen it.
Yeah, in Sheffield, and they're showing all the little models and everything they're printed off. There's like a Millennium Falcon and like a Disneyland castle, and like there's like spanners and stuff, so it can show like application of tools and things. But yeah, it's like the layers upon layers upon layers upon layers sort of thing, isn't it? From like a CAD or a CAM type design, like some sort of downloadable file that will be then used to print something off in whatever material your 3D printer works with or something. But
yeah, that's pretty much it.
Yeah, like just the implications on everything, like the economy, like what will happen if everyone just starts 3D printing things and you don't need to have stock, like and all that kind of inventory and stuff like that. And now you just have made to order stuff, or you'll just have like files that you sell to people.
Yeah. Well, that's from what I've read and what I've seen from people. Basically, what's going to happen is it'll be like microtransactions, or I forgot there's another word for microtransactions. Like micro payments or whatever. For basically like a 3D blueprint, if you want, of various items that you can then print out at home. So you go online, and there'd be a website where you break the handle on your fridge, and you go onto fridge. I don't know what my maker fridge is. I can't remember, but fridge.com. You type in the model number, and then for 99 pence, it'll send the file to your printer, which will print out. And microtransactions and stuff like that. So it'll be like tiny little things. So like that's where the industry will move to. It'll be more concepts and idea based than it will be on physical stock and products. But it'll remove a lot. I think it'll make it a lot more efficient. just in that, because as opposed to somebody like, if somebody has, like, if you ever watch Dragon's Den in the UK or anything like that, people generally have a product, they have an idea, they design it, and then they have a stock. And then a big part of some people's business model, especially if it's something that's, you know, some small item or whatever it is, like they make a lot of things and then they try and shift the stocks. Like, all of that's not going to happen because it's going to be micro licensing or, you know, microtransacting this like a blueprint. Like it's have you ever seen ZBrush? You know, that computer program, like a 3D modeling program.
No, I've not.
Yeah, it's like it's how some people. There's an entire thing, and we'll get onto it in a bit. But there's a company called Shapeways, where independent artists can basically sell their 3D designed miniatures for gaming or board games or whatever it is. There's a million different things, little models and stuff, and then they sell through Shapeways their idea, basically the concept, their design, through this program called ZBrush, which is a 3D modeling software. And then Shapeways prints out the artist's design and sends it to the customer. So the customer buys it from their shop on Shapeways. Shapeways print it elsewhere and ship it straight to the customer, sort of thing. So it's going to be a piece of software that, and the one people using at the minute is ZBrush. Yeah. So the implications of that in particular is that not only will people already have designs, and you'll be able to print out stuff or again buy things that people have already designed. But the major thing for me was that you'll be able to design some stuff yourself. So in the same sort of a way that, like, you can go out into the woods and I can make a spoon out of, you can whittle a spoon out of wood, you know, that sort of thing, where it's going to be a lot really creative, where people in the future, and I don't mean even far into the future, I mean, like, you can learn ZBrush right now and you can have stuff 3D printed. It's already like well established, it's already well popular, because the costs are coming right down and you can print in such an array of materials, like a really good array of materials for cheaper and cheaper, like each year. So yeah, I think once people get their hands on the software and the software develops, there's going to be one that's going to be affordable. And like I said, people will be able to design their own stuff. And then you can make pretty much anything you want, like yourself, if you're skilled enough at doing it. So there's going to be all sorts of different people that can basically, instead of buying something, you'll be able to design something similar yourself for free. And then I'll be able to design a handle for a fridge or whatever it is. You know, like my ear stretchers, the little plug things. Like, how simple would it be to design that? Do you know what I mean? I could make one of those myself. Like, it's the cylinder in 3D. And like, then you wouldn't have to buy it. You'd make the design yourself and just pay for the materials. So in terms of it being a revolution, other than people just having like their own ability, it's an insane power to give people to do it. And I think that's why there's been massive industry resistance for 3D printing, because it's been around for so long, obviously, already. Because in terms of like being a fucking powerful consumer and a person and everything, all that shit is gone. And then the black market, the pirating, the current trends of people just, I haven't paid, I mean, I shouldn't say this. I shouldn't say it online, should I? Fucking hell. Right. I have paid every track of music I've ever listened to. I've paid for it in full. Right.
So have I.
Every game and film and television program I've ever watched, I've paid for with hard-earned money in full.
Actually, to go one step further, when it comes to media and multimedia, not only have I paid for it, I often leave a tip as well.
I paid twice the asking price just because I'm a nice guy. Fucking hell. But just that, basically, it's like the entire pirating or the free-form share of those designs and things that you can 3D print. Like, they can't stop that shit. Like, it's like the war on drugs or any of those sort of things. Like, they just don't work. You can't stop people doing it. And we've been shown time and time again that, again, it's obviously a pretty good example. The war on drugs has failed time and time again, and yet people waste money on it. In pirating as well. Despite,
like, you know, like with the whole Napster thing.
Yeah.
When that
Lars Ulrich, wasn't it?
Yeah, and obviously there's huge industry resistance where the majority of the industry's money and time and effort went towards suing people rather than actually trying to realize that this technology is inevitable and try and find a workaround so that they can still stay alive and still stay relevant. And then I think obviously they eventually realized with things like, you know, Spotify and iTunes and Netflix and all those type of things, they realized that we just need to make it more convenient for people than to download. We need to provide a better service where they can just pay, and then, you know, it's easier than buying physical media. And I bet there's probably a lot of lessons for the industry to learn from that. Like, obviously the initial resistance is inevitable because they want to hold out for as long as possible, but when it does really kick off, like when torrenting and downloading files really kicked off, like, it'll be interesting to see if they just make the exact same mistakes and just go down the suing kind of path, left, right and center, or if they actually try and provide a more convenient workaround for everyone, like whether it's providing materials, whether it's some kind of massive site that, you know, is the big innovator in the files and how you share and upload those, like, you know, like a social media, but with those files or something like that. They're going to have to get pretty creative to stay relevant. Otherwise, yeah, the entire economy could fucking change in like 5 years.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, under current conditions, if we go in the same sort of situations we have right now, then that's definitely it's gonna definitely lead to like higher pirating and the rest of it. Like, if we just have the same technology and the same model, but 3D printing really takes off, then yeah, I think people are going to sort of tend to do the same sorts of things. And those changes within the mindset of people, obviously, it takes a long time to because I don't see anything morally wrong with pirating. Basically, like, the difference between people say like piracy is theft. And what I say is theft is theft and piracy is piracy. They're a different word. They're a different law. They have a different punishment. They're different everything. And people say piracy is a form of theft, and it's not really, because if you had a car and I stole it, you had one car and I had nothing, and now I've got one car and you've got nothing. Like, if I copied your car and 3D printed my identical one, you've got it and so have I. You've not lost anything. Like, nothing has been taken from you whatsoever. It's this potential future maybe. Whereas, for example, if I was going to pirate a music CD, in their eyes, that's money they would have got. It's like, I would never have bought it otherwise. So it's just flawed. The entire argument is absolutely flawed, because there was 0% chance of you ever getting that money. And because I pirated it as opposed to paying you the money does not mean in any way you would have ever got the money. And that's what they think. They think that there's 100% chance of me just giving them that money otherwise, and therefore that's a loss. You haven't lost a penny. You haven't lost a thing. You were never going to get it in the first place. It's like, if I monetize a video on YouTube and it contains somebody's pirated, somebody's copyright material, you can't monetize the video because it's their material and you can't profit off their thing. It's like that situation, and me going into a video being like, oh, I'm not going to make it then because I can't make any money, because it's your stuff. Like, what the fuck are you talking about? Like, you making money was never on the cards. Like, you Mr. Music Man, you were never ever going to get that money from me, and that's what it is. Like, you can't just say that and then it's real. Like, you would have given it me. Like, you can't predict the future, you fucking sorcerer. You aren't, like, you haven't got a crystal ball in the, this is how you would have spent your money. It's ridiculous. So that's the main thing for me with piracy, and it fucking winds me up, because piracy is not theft.
No, it's not. Can you remember those silly adverts at the cinema in the UK when it first started to all kick off, like torrenting and things? And they might even still be on now, I'm not sure, but definitely they're not as common, probably because they realise they've lost. But there'd be like some crazy, track would kick in, and it'd be this, like, there'd be flames everywhere, and there'd be like dark scenes, and it'd be like someone robbed someone's handbag, and it'd be like, you wouldn't steal a handbag. And then like someone, would try and break into someone's car, and it's like, you wouldn't steal a car. And they'd be like, oh no, the police and all this kind of stuff. And it's like, so don't steal a film. And they'd like basically make it out to be exactly the same thing, i.e. you pressing download and watching a film without going to the cinema to pay, 15 quid for it, is exactly the same as you taking someone's purse in the street. Like, it's not equivalent in any way. However, one caveat I would add, or like one, different side, playing devil's advocate to the point you just made, how you don't see anything wrong with it, or at least it's obviously not the same, is I think Louis C.K. raised a really good point about this. And he's like, I self-produce, write, edit, spend all my career writing and, producing these comedy specials. If I released it, onto the internet, and then everybody started downloading and torrenting it, like, that's harming me individually, especially if because on his website he said it's badly paraphrased, but on his website, like, he only charges $5 for it. He's like, could easily charge a lot more, because I'm cutting out the middleman. Like I'm not going through, the TV companies or film companies or through the high street retailers or anything like that. So literally, you download it off my website. You can have it in whatever definition that you want. You can keep downloading it from wherever you want. You can have it as many times. It's yours now. Like I don't own it, but just pay me $5 and then it's done, kind of thing. Like that's my career. I've worked hard to sort of creative develop this, and and then I actually went on his website and paid for that, because I was like, how many hours of enjoyment have I got out of his specials, out of his materials, out of all of his jokes and stuff, and just listening to him on podcasts and everything. Like, and going back to the idea of voting with your money, where do you want to see the money go? I think he is leaving a massively more plus side, like positive imprint on the world, like just by him existing and creating, than a negative one. And so me sending money towards him is kind of increasing what he can do with that. So there is that side of it. Like if you're sort of either a small business or you're just like an independent thing, you're not Sony or Microsoft or like these big budget producers like in Hollywood or anything like that, and you're just like one person, I guess that is quite damaging to torrent things, and I hadn't really put much idea into thinking about that.
Yeah, I know what you mean. I agree with that point, and I agree that if that's somebody's creative outlet, and it's like that thing with the artists, like obviously I'm a professional artist or whatever. I don't like calling it that, but that's what I do. And if somebody was going to come and like rip my work off or something, then it would be damaging to me. The thing is that I think about that, especially with stuff online, is that you pay for it before you listen to it. It's something that's really subjective and something you might not enjoy. It's like going to a restaurant and paying for the food before you tasted it. Like if it was shit, then you don't pay. Do you know what I'm saying? If it wasn't very good, then you don't pay. And there's a million things like that you can't get your money back then. It's usually like non-refundable. Once you download something off iTunes, and that's it. You can't get your money back. And I get it, but that was very deliberate, written into the business model to do stuff like that. If you went into a restaurant, they would never ask for money up front. And if you don't like it, then you don't pay. It's that sort of thing. So like Radiohead in particular, they did a few things where they put a thing on their website where it said, I think it was In Rainbows, like one of the best albums of recent times. Just pay me whatever. If you pay a penny, then fine. If you want to take it, just have it, and you can have it for free. Or you can pay anything you want. And actually, overall, it was one of their highest selling albums because people give them on average like a tenner or something like that. There's a load of different things wrong with it. And another point, and again, I know it sounds like I'm disagreeing with like you as a person sort of thing. I know that's, it's not like, it's not a me v you sort of thing, but my personal counter argument to all that sort of shit as well, in terms of the values of people's products. Radiohead said they released it online for any money you want, and you could literally pay nothing, and then you could pirate that, or whatever else. I'm just trying to think. If your business is not profitable, you move on. Survival of the fittest. If you've got a product that can be copied easily and therefore destroy the value of it 100%, like I can take it for free and therefore it's worth zero. You're like, the seller can't dictate its price. It's to do with the buyers. It's a buyer's market. If it's worth zero to me and if I can take it for free, don't keep doing that model. Like that's a bad business model. Then that's as much their fault as it is for people taking it. There's nothing morally wrong with piracy because it's so easy, and I'm not getting into that. There's nothing morally wrong with it. Survival of the fittest. If your business is not profitable and you know it and you keep doing it, and then you're trying to victimize like people, like turn it on people that are pirating things and make it immoral somehow, and tar people with that brush, you move along. If your business isn't profitable, it should go under, and that's what we want. You want it to be that way because it weeds people out. It weeds out the weak. And people have economic crises or crises, the political ones. Loads and loads of businesses go under because they're not that profitable. It's another situation like that. Where if your product can be stolen for free in seconds easily, then try to do something else. Like try and innovate. All the money they spend suing people, you could have spent employing people, professional and creative people, to create new platforms, to create a new idea, or to create a new product, or to think about it in some way, and they don't. They've failed again and again and again and again. And as opposed to innovating or trying to move forward, and they've sued people, they've taken money out of the market suing people for a start, and they've done the same thing. Definition of an insanity. from Einstein, wasn't it? That, you know, you try the same thing again and hope for a different result. You're not going to stop piracy. Like, you're on the wrong side of history with that. Opposing 3D printing is the wrong side of history, like, because you don't want it. Opposing free energy, because fossil fuels you make money off, because solar and wind is free and you can't make money off it. So people are opposing solar energy. There's a million examples of that. You're on the wrong side of history, man.
Yeah, man, that's a good point. I agree. I think a lot of the ideas behind, you know, like the fear around it and the sort of societal wrongdoing, it's almost like, let's try and convince all of them that it's wrong. And so we don't necessarily have to turn on them. We don't have to sue every one of them. We can create like a little moral thing within their society where, you know, you'll have friends and family members and colleagues and actually turn around and do our job for us and say, are you sure you should be doing that? So it's like, yeah, it's very similar to the war on drugs in that respect, where you make the enemy internal as opposed to the people that are actually in control and people have all the money and the power. If you make the little man hate the other little man because of X, Y, Z, then it takes the focus off us. It helps us maintain at least some grasp for the next 5 or 10 years on our current economic sort of situation with this business model. So yeah, rather than, because obviously change is very bad for them. Like, they don't want drastic change because all it does is raise massive question marks over their existence, and they will cling and fight and kick and bite to keep everything as it is. And if they can go through a legal route with that, then obviously they're gonna. With the Radiohead thing though, that's quite interesting. How far through their career was that though? Because one point I would add is, like, it's very easy to do that when you're not financially reliant on the album succeeding well, you know, because that's a big risk. Like, I bet, I wonder if there's ever a band that's done something like that as their first album. Like, do you know what I mean? Like,
yeah, I know what you mean. I think more and more people are doing a model like that. Like Protest the Hero as well. They're experimental sort of, don't know what sort of metal it is, like metalcore, I guess, but like I don't know, technical prog metal or whatever they call it. I don't know. They've got a thing on Bandcamp where you basically, what's it called?
I think it's mathcore.
Mathcore, right? Yeah. Like theory and stuff. That makes sense. Yeah. But yeah, they have a thing on Bandcamp where I'm sure you can pay like a monthly subscription of like $5 a month or something, and then you can get all of their stuff. Where like they release a couple of songs here and there. Do you know what I mean? So that sort of thing. Radiohead released that album, and I forget what it was. It was in like 2007 or 2008, I think. So it was years, like 10 years ago now. But yeah, they were already obviously one of the biggest bands in the world by that point. But yeah, no, a lot of people are adopting that model because that's progress. Because those sort of things, like the industry doesn't owe you anything. Like, you aren't owed any money. Life doesn't owe you a penny. You can't just do something and then expect money. Like, that's your fault for going into it like that. Like, so some people, there's plenty of people in plenty of professions that are really, really good and it doesn't work out for them. And that's fine. That's absolutely fine. Like, it's not, if you just keep putting the time in and all the rest of it, you can just be unlucky. And that's a part of it. Like, sometimes it looks like it should follow this logical pattern every single time, and you get up at 6 a.m, you do your 12 hours of work, and sometimes it's just not enough. Like, you just can't do it. And it's the same with music. Some people just explode that aren't really that good. It's all subjective anyway, music in particular. But and so the random sort of chaotic nature of it that's present in pretty much fucking everything in life, like, expresses itself in business as well. Like, sometimes shit just goes wrong for you. And it's one of them situations where just, well, that's it. Life doesn't owe you a penny. And people go in and think that's a bad thing because I did this and I think it's worth this and all the rest of it. Like, you're only disappointed because you mismanaged your own expectations, or, you know, because you went in thinking that you could make money doing it and then you didn't. And it's like, well, that's a bad thing now. People know there's piracy. People always know there's been piracy. In 3D printing, there's going to be piracy. Let's not kid ourselves. Let's not go in with unrealistic expectations of what's exactly going to happen, because you can predict it to a fucking T right now, that people are going to share around those little blueprints for things they're going to try and charge for. People need to do something else. If you keep trying the same thing again and again and again and expecting a different outcome, that is your fault and not the fault of the, you know, it's their, I'd say not them and us. I mean, the people that are creating the products, like, it's as much their fault for doing stupid things and seeing bad results and then keeping to do it. You know, piracy is going to happen. I don't know what it is, man. I don't know what it's going to be. And if I did, I'd be a fucking rich man. So I don't know, but something's going to come in and they're going to have to think of a new, innovative, creative way to get around those problems that they're having in the market right now.
They need to make it very convenient for people. They need to make it easy. They need to make it the best possible way for people to access this new technology. And so that's why it's worth me giving you my money. Like, you know, with Netflix and how that's revolutionized TV, like I heard something that they don't even, because they just throw money at people now wanting to make TV shows and people who want to write and produce. Just fucking have this money. Let's get it on Netflix. Let's improve our catalog. We'll advertise it for you. All that sort of stuff. And I think they don't even tell. They don't even give the full analytics and viewership ratings and all that sort of stuff to the people who've created the shows. Like it's really limited. Excuse me. Like much more so than you would expect. And the idea is that if I spend my Netflix membership because I want to watch, I don't know what's on there, I've not got it at the moment, but say it's Always Sunny in Philadelphia or South Park or Frasier or something like that.
Stranger Things.
Like
Yeah.
I am indirectly paying for its Orange is the New Black and whatever other shows that are on there at the moment and that are being made. And so, yeah, I don't know, their business model, they have come up with a really convenient way to make it work for both parties. Like the TV shows gets made, they still get their money from Netflix. It's still the best possible way, or at least for, a lot of people. It's a really, really accessible and convenient way to watch all the TV that they want to watch. And so they have come up with, through technology and innovation, a really convenient and accessible way for everyone to win, or at least at the moment until the technology shifts again. And so, yeah, rather than trying to claw and kick and make everybody say, no, this is how we watch television. And if you don't want to watch television this way, then you're going to go in a cage and we need that money from you. Like, imagine if I had like a burrito stand in the city centre and it was really, really successful. And then all of a sudden a new wave of food came along that made burritos obsolete. And I started trying to sue people because they didn't come and buy my burritos anymore. like, that's insane. But we don't think of it as a similar analogy to that at all, because these are huge organizations and we don't think of them as people. We think of them as like laws almost and traditions and sort of, mechanisms in society that must be followed, when really they're a collection of people that want money.
Yeah,
and so they
taking a mind of their own. I think it's sort of immoral for you to force somebody else to do something. It's sort of, you can't make somebody do something. So the next closest thing, which in my opinion is evil as fuck, but they make you think other things as well, to then make you think that that's what you want to do in the first place. Putting ideas in your head and everything that, like, well, I want to eat at Mike's burrito stand, man. It's the best one. You got these little ideas in your head because you've spent this million, instead of suing people, you've spent millions of pounds on ad campaigns where you're fucking with your top off, like ripped with bitches around you in these burritos and shit. And now your business is blowing up because it looks awesome. And you're like, if I eat this burrito, I might have some sex afterwards or something. And you've spent millions of pounds putting the idea into my head, not to try and force people to go to your burrito stand, but force people to think that they want to in the first place. But before that, before you, that didn't exist. It's absolutely evil because it can put ideas in your head. Do you know what I'm saying? There's a space between your ears, and it's like a little fucking memory bank of shit, and they can put stuff in there. And that is a real problem. It's a real problem for me.
Yeah, me too.
I don't like it, man. But
I mean, either. Well, I'm kind of torn on the idea, not wholeheartedly, but there's a small part of me where I could see an argument for, right, in this connected world where people are wanting to learn stuff and buy things and see new films and hear new bands and maybe try new foods and get into new sports and all that kind of things. Like, you just want it. Like, how would you find out about anything if there were adverts? How would you find out if something, someone was going to go do a play and it was going around the country and it's tours and there's upcoming dates and stuff? Like, how would you even know that was happening? How would they? And you might really, really want to go to that, and you're kind of waiting on the advert to come out to know about it. But so I guess maybe it's really difficult to put a law or a firm rule in place to say this is what's wrong and this is what's right. But I wonder if what's an objective truth is being advertised. So here is what it is, and that's all they're saying. This is a thing that we have, and it's now available, and you can buy it. That's different. But I think as soon as you start adding in all the other stuff, the subjective stuff, it's not even subjective, it's just wrong. Like where, for example, McDonald's can be an official sponsor of the Olympics. What is that about? Like Heineken will be the official beer of, you know, a football team or anything like that. Like, it's
Budweiser in
not
the UFC.
unrelated. Like, I mean, it's not all related. If that football team has spent, you know, the last few months training somebody using a particular type of protein powder, and they know for sure that that's what they use regardless of any advertising, and then they choose to broker a deal with that protein powder because they actually believe in it, that's a whole different matter. But to be sponsored by a beer or a fast food chain when not one of those single elite athletes on that field will be intaking regularly, at least, any beer or fast food, like, how is that acceptable? And then like the brainwashing of like putting like, you know, certain films will just have all the cars, it'll focus on the Audi rings at the start, and then it'll pan out, and then you'll see the hero with his fucking girl in his arms and stuff. And so what they're trying to do very consciously is create sort of objective associations between strength, sexiness, happiness, contentness, and their product, their new shiny thing. And there is a physical bridge that is created in your brain, like when a synapse will be created from, say, this guy smoking this Marlboro cigarette to him laughing with his friends and getting all the girls and winning at the end of the day. So you think, right, the neurons in my brain that associate winning at the end of the day and having a great time, and then the neurons in my brain that know about this Marlboro cigarette, they will then create a physical bridge and they will connect in your mind.
Yeah. Like, yeah, that's it. Nodes and synapses and shit. And you got concepts, haven't you? And then the links between them. So you'll have like, yeah, exactly. It's crazy. Nodes and synapses. It's mental because from the power of thought alone, you can create something physical, a physical link within the brain, like an actual thing that people can. I don't know whether they can physically see them or measure them, whatever, which is fucking crazy, really. But what I don't like about it is it's so deliberate. It's the intent behind it. Do you know what I mean? It's like, well, we've got all these people that have researched human psychology, like the physical ways that the psychological ways that human beings work, the way their brains work, the way we connect ideas and concepts together. And what we're going to do is, I'm going to put a piece of media in front of somebody that artificially puts these concepts into their mind and deliberately link them together, so that now, before watching this thing on my brain as it is, and then after watching a thing, there's physical areas in my brain that are dedicated and conceptually dedicated to this product alone and nothing else. And then, yeah, in your real life, subconsciously or whatever it is, I don't know whether that'd be a subconscious process, but like without you necessarily realizing it, I did it on one of his previous episodes, like there's a million adverts that you can finish off in your head, and you've got ideas and products and logos and jingles and all the rest that are only inside your head. And that it's so immoral. It's immoral, and that's the problem. But then they don't care about that sort of thing. And therefore I've got this bitterness, I've got this sort of anger, this cynicism at the things that you do with it, and I can't accept it. Like people say, oh, you've just got to forget about it, you've just got to move on. I'm not capable of accepting that. It's well beyond, so far beyond my parameter of ethics or morals that I would, if it was in my real life, I would cut ties with that person or that thing or that idea, and you can't. I can't accept it, and I can't get away from it. So what do you do? Like you've got to sit with the cynicism. You've got to sit with the stress of it, and the cortisol that will be released from thinking those things in your head will shorten your life. Like it'll cause inflammation in the body and like shorten the telomeres in your cells and shit like that. It will literally kill you being stressed like that. But then the alternative is to accept a corrupt system, try and change it, I guess, or just sit with the cynicism. And there's nothing you can do about it. And therefore, a lot of the time, I try to just ignore things and so not pretend they're not happening. I'm aware of it, but just switch off in the opposite way that, you know, that love and hate aren't the opposites that love and indifference are. That you can ignore a bully and it'll go away. Just fucking ignore it, because none of that process is good. Do you know what I mean? It's evil, and it smacks of like mind control and all them awful things. But then the act of being bitter and cynical and annoyed about it is so stressful that it will damage your life. It'll damage your health if you keep thinking about it all the time. So the answer is not to accept it, not to hate on them, not to go along with it. The answer is to just utterly ignore any of those signals, and it's almost impossible. Like I said, it's impossible in your actual life to ignore adverts or anything like that. But to do anything you possibly can, not to think about it, not to look at it, not to be involved in it. It's not really possible, but to do everything within your power, not to even be stressed, not to even think about it, because the stress will literally kill you.
It's not possible to 100% cut it out. Definitely not. But yeah, you can
very close though.
Yeah,
90%.
You can certainly take measures to get most of it out of your life. You know, like not watching sort of television in the traditional way. You know, not when you see things out the corner of your eye, whether it be a billboard or, you know, an advert, just shut it off, look away, stop reading what they have to say. Yeah, just don't fucking click any of those little clickbait articles that say this, and this. Like, even if you don't think you are and you're not necessarily got any bad intent, you're part of the problem if you click them, because that then reinforces the idea that people are clicking on it. It's what people want. And in the same way, you know, if you think of all the biggest advertisers right now and the ones that you're bitter about, just ignore them. Like, not just ignore the adverts, but ignore the businesses. Cut them out of your life. Don't give them any money. Don't give them any of your attention.
That's it, mate. Yeah, not spending your money there, like you're saying. I love that. Just lately, don't vote with your dollar or your pound.
don't vote with your dollar.
Yeah, convert all your money to dollars first, and then waste them all and stuff. No, but not because money is a form of power, and you know that in those businesses, a lot of them, even though they are entities and they are comprised of, you know, my business is one man sort of thing, so it's all me. But like, one of my very top priorities is money, unfortunately, and I don't like the way it is. But some of those companies, the bigger they are, the more depersonalized they get. They take on a life of their own, and unfortunately, their number one priority is money. And you know that, and we all know that. Everybody knows that, and so do they, sort of thing. So it's all about the bottom line. It's all about, you know, increasing profit for shareholders or whatever it is. All that evil, all the terminology, all the rest of it. It makes me feel ill. It makes me feel greasy. Do you know what I mean? It's like, oh, horrible. Like the bottom line for the shareholders, all these little buzzwords, because you can tell that there's people that have got marketing degrees that are sitting in ill-fitting suits in some fucking office somewhere, coming up with these strategies to implement new, all the rest of it. It's horrible. It's the fucking greasy things. Yeah. Oh, hybridization and shit like that. Fuck you, you fucking parasite. All the rest of it. So there's all them fucking people, and they're all going around thinking about money, and therefore you know that money is their number one priority. You've got the money and they want it, so just don't give it to them. That's the thing. The thing that I'm coming to realize, and again, not to be patronizing, the thing that I'm realizing just lately is, if you keep thinking about it, it's very stressful. So that just turn your eyes away. You can't live your life watching the news. You can't live your life thinking about the bullshit in politics and banking and economics and fucking wars and all the rest of it, because you will proper stress yourself out if you're an objective person and you can sort of see it for what I mean. I'm not saying that I see the world for how it is or anything like that, but
dude, you don't have to place that caveat on that every time. It's fine.
I know, but that's what I worry sometimes that I come across like I've got it all figured out. I've got all the answers. You just fucking listen to me, because it's obviously not like that. And I know you know, but I'm just convincing myself, I guess. But yeah, just all that sort of shit. Just fucking turn your eyes away, because there's nothing you can do. And like I said, it's almost worse in some ways to be sort of a very self-aware person, to be very analytical and all the rest of it. It damages you in a lot of ways, because you become quite sensitive. And I think same sort of thing, having your eyes open to that sort of stuff, becoming through various experiences in my life, obviously, becoming like that. I suppose you're sensitive. I suppose you're easily hurt. You know what I mean?
I think it's the classic Matrix: red pill or the blue pill. Like, do you want to would it be better to ignorance is bliss? You know, walk through life without knowing that you're in this kind of corrupt, marketing-filled, you know, money is power sort of society, and just go along with the materialism and consumerism and just sort of work so you can buy that slightly faster car, slightly bigger house, you know, faster internet connection, designer handbags, just to keep you ticking over so you don't feel like shit for another 6 months, and then you can just keep buying them again. Like, you know, that's kind of what it sometimes feels like if you want to swallow the blue pill, and you want kind of to look at things for how they are and get a tap on the shoulder from Morpheus saying, you know, please come and try and change some things. It's going to be shit because you don't get to see the woman in the red dress and pretend that you're having a great life and all that sort of stuff. But yeah, I don't know. I think it is better, at least because I've been on both sides of the fence. You know, I'm on some sort of path. Don't have it figured out, anything like that, but I feel like I'm on some sort of path to each day try and get some slightly more semblance of an idea of what's going on in the world, what's going on, you know, internally in myself, what's going on in society, what's going on with those around me. Just trying to be a critical thinker, just treat every day like a fucking school day, even though I'm 27 years old, you know, just try and learn more and more, just try and be objective about stuff. And I think, yeah, I don't know, that's the challenge, isn't it? Rather than just hiding under the bed sheets and just fucking pretending everything's not terrible, or, you know, I don't want to paint a negative picture of everything, because there is plenty of awesome, maybe even more awesome stuff in the world than there is shit stuff. But yeah, to actually, I think it's the only way that you can really change your life for the better is if you admit that there's a lot of shit stuff that you've been doing and that you've bought into for a long period of time.
Yeah, I see a lot of those things, and like the progression you're talking about, obviously. It's called Chogyam Trungpa or something. This is like a Buddhist guy. He says, if you cannot go down the path of self-awareness, then don't do it. Some people are essentially asleep, which is fine. Like, you know, when you have a dream at night, you don't realize you're dreaming. You know what I mean? I had a dream last night that I was in a hotel room, but it was in the middle of this bar that I used to work in, and all the patrons were people that I used to go to school with. It's absolute bullshit. And there's one where I went mental and I started shooting people and shit like that. It wasn't dark. Do you know what I mean? It was kind of weird. And then I decided in my head that, like, oh, actually that didn't happen. And then I walked back in and everyone was fine. And I went back into the hotel room and all the rest of it. At the time, I 100% believed that was real. And I think in your actual life, that's very similar. You know, it can seem real until you realize it's a dream and it's too late, sort of thing. And actually, that's a pretty good metaphor for most people's lives. You're kind of asleep, and once you sort of realize there's no way of going back, you can't turn back to ignorance anymore. It's a one-way path, and therefore it does seem like there's a direction. I don't know what it is. Instead of being, it's not a judgment. There's no meaning to it as such. It's a broadening. Like the negatives seem more negative and the positives seem more negative.
Yeah, everything that's neutral seems really negative. Everything that's negative seems even more negative. Yeah. Positive negative as fuck.
You know, I'm just really depressed, man. Help me. No, but just the positive seem more positive. It's a broadening of things. It's not necessarily, it's no judgment, none of that. No better, no worse, no good, no bad, no spiritual, no asleep, any of that. It's just a broadening. So I think you're aware of more stuff, but ultimately it's a positive thing. I don't know. I think if you can sort of if you can navigate it in a more of an ethical way, most of that comes from being self-aware, or from analysing situations in a certain way. We've got completely off topic from 3D printing, obviously.
Oh yeah. Speaking of, look what I just printed.
Oh, that's really realistic, man.
Yeah. I just printed this cactus.
Shit.
I didn't.
I know. That's pretty good. What was that? Was like a joke or something?
Hello? No. I just wouldn't it be cool? Like, I wonder how long it will be until biological matter in the form of things like plants and animals can be printed. But then I guess you start to get towards the idea of replication of living things.
Already happened. There's not happened. Sorry, they've grown like tissue basically with a 3D printer. So one of the implications, I've got this little Word document thing when I look. So the major implications, apart from basically just medicine, because you know everybody's system works sort of different or responds different to certain types of medicine. There's it's going to be basically like they're going to be able to target or tailor medicine to your system. Do you know what I mean? So you'll be able to print off antibiotics that work for your system, stuff like that. So if you get an infection or something, or you know you've got a bad tooth or something like that, they can give you antibiotics that work specifically for you. But there's going to be in the future basically organ transplants, prosthetics, drugs tailored to treat diseases, all the rest of it that's tailored, specifically to your system. So it's only a matter of time before a life form is created. And the major, I wanted to talk to you about this actually because I've been thinking about it. I was going to text you about it, and then I thought I'd leave it for today. The implication of that entire thing is if somebody can create a life, if you can 3D print a life, if you can create a system artificially, an intelligence, if you want, a computer program so intelligent that it becomes sentient, that the implication is that if you create a vessel for life, life will inhabit it. It's not necessarily that like us as human beings, you have a consciousness that's to do with the brain and all the rest of it, and that's it. But there's a field of consciousness or something, or that consciousness is sort of an objective force in the universe, like there's gravity and all the rest of it, like light and radiation, and that consciousness is its own field. And if you create a vessel capable of holding it, like consciousness will begin to live inside it. And that sort of the thing, if you can 3D print organs and stuff, almost now, like people are definitely going to be able to do that before long. You're going to be able to, if you have a finger chopped off, you're going to be able to print your own one, or I don't know, you'll be able to have a surgery or something and just have it put back on. That if you create a vessel complex enough, and life will begin to inhabit it? Do you know what I mean? Like all of that. Like, how crazy is that?
Yeah, that's pretty nuts. I think the idea of this was discussed by Brian Cox, and the idea of it being, I think they're called something machines, is it like von Neumann machines or something, like if they did exist, like it was some sort of philosophical or theoretical concept, or if it is possible for them to exist, then we would have seen them by now, because they would be infinite if they could self-replicate, and they would just say spread out across the galaxy or the universe from some other, like it raises questions like, are we alone in terms of being, a technologically proficient civilization? Because surely that's always going to be the end goal. Like, it's kind of like the final step almost of any civilization, is to be able to create machines that then can recreate themselves. Like.
Yeah, no, I do know what you mean. I think a lot of those times, like the exponential nature of those things is that they'll start at zero and will multiply, all the way up, but they'll never reach one. Do you know what I'm saying? Like they'll never ever reach perfection. Like objectivity in journalism is the goal, but it's never reached. Like perfection is never on the cards. You know what I mean? You can't live a perfect life. You can't do anything perfect, but you can get 0.99, depending on what the thing is. I think it's the same sort of thing. Like we're always thinking that the ultimate expression of AI is a god, or like all the things that, all that shit that God means to people, that it's the ultimate form of all knowing, all omniscient, the creator of everything. And I think actually the exponential nature of those things never ever reaches its full, like infinity within maths is it projects the plane by which mathematics is possible as a concept, but nothing ever truly expresses infinity. Anything, it's always very, very close. You know what I mean? Or like indecipherably close from the real thing. And therefore, I reckon AI is moving in a direction, and it seems like it's going to move towards being some godlike, all-seeing creator of a universe that might create its own universes and all the rest of it. But it'll never be perfection. It'll never ever reach that very top level. And if history is anything to go by, people massively, massively exaggerate where things are going and where things are headed, and what we end up with, even if it is like a 9 out of 10, or some things happen unexpectedly. Like it's never this like unbelievable game changing, 10 out of 10, the infinity of AI sort of thing. It never ever quite works out that way. But I know exactly what you mean in that we're not. I don't know whether we're alone in the universe, man. I don't know whether we are. I just don't know. And I think if we're very honest with ourselves, nobody fucking knows. Like, I think one of the very scary things, especially with just as an example in society, like people think there's an Illuminati, or they think that there's secret societies, or there's fraternities of people that are deciding the ultimate direction of things. And as human beings, we tend to externalize our thoughts and feelings onto these omniscient, exaggerated, like these concepts and these ideas in life, like gods and deities and all the rest of it, and they never turn out to be real.
No, but where can it reach then?
Just very close, man. I don't know. I wish I did know, man. Like, I wish I could just fucking scratch that itch sometimes. But then I think that's a part of it, mate. I think it's a part of it is being honest enough to accept that you don't know, and admit that you don't know, and then operate from there to just like all things are possible because I ain't got a fucking clue. Science is a religion, basically, that's got the same things. Nobody's proved anything. At the end of the day, who fucking knows? I think AI, if it does, it is definitely moving on a path, and it is. We're not that smart. Do you know what I'm saying? Like Neil deGrasse Tyson had this fucking mind blown bit where he was saying that a human is 1% different than a chimp. Like a chimp has 99% of our DNA, and the very very rest chimp can do sign language, and it can convey complex ideas through its hands, or whatever, because their voice boxes aren't as developed as a person's and all the rest of it. But they're 1% different than a human, and a chimp has got sign language, and the human has got the Hubble Ultra Deep Field Telescope. We've got nth dimensions and string theory and all these fucking mental things. If we're definitely on an evolutionary path right now. I think the grey aliens that people have in popular culture is probably humanity's ultimate destination. I think it's a little glimpse forward in the directions that human beings are going. And if anything, time and space are an illusion. I think those aliens have probably come back from a different space, from far away, and have tried to observe humanity in its state now before nuclear war.
Well, they are just us all along. They were us to begin with, and
the aliens were us. The aliens are at us. There was a nuclear war, and the knowledge was lost about pre-war civilization, and they come back to view us, or something like that. That's what it's going to be, in my opinion, anyway.
Maybe
all that sort of thing. Sorry, go.
I was just going to say, maybe they've just come back for Ben and Jerry's, though. Like, is that maybe
That's a bit weird, man.
All they want is ice cream, Netflix, and chill.
Yeah, that's it. Maybe, who knows, man? I just don't know. That's the same kind of thing. I just don't know anymore. Which brings me quite nicely on, because I've got to get going in a minute, to the next episode. That I want to talk maybe in a few episodes' time about existential crisis, because what crisis means to people is different from what I mean by it. If you know what I mean, most people think it's a really bad thing where you're questioning your life and you're sort of depressed and everything like that. Like, why should I put the milk in my coffee and all the rest of it? It's not like that. But the loss of meaning in stuff is an existential crisis, and I've been experiencing that for the last fucking years. I really have. And it's bothering me or whatever. It's one of the big problems in my life at this point, is that there's not a great deal of meaning for stuff. There's a million different things, but existential crisis, if you look at some of the research and some of the medical definitions and things, it sums up a lot of how we feel about stuff. Or that you had a system in place of things that meant things, and ideas and concepts, and this means this, and this is moral, and this is immoral, and all the rest of it. And we've realized that all of those things are basically illusions. And a lot of your own personality and your ego and stuff like that is basically just an illusion. It's just a story you tell about yourself. So many times it appears to be a real thing and it isn't. And that is pretty much the crux of a existential crisis. And when you tell somebody that, obviously it makes it seem like you're having some sort of problems, and I'm not. I'm happier than I've been in my entire life, basically. But it does very, very accurately sum up how I feel about a lot of shit. So maybe the next one or the one after that, we should have a chat about that, man, because some of the, some of the details are fucking spot on.
Some lovely little pockets of gold in there.
Loads of it. But it makes it seem, because the thing is, I was reading up about it, because I'm definitely having a massive existential crisis. Like, I definitely am really, really struggling with it. But it's not a bad thing for me. Like, I'm glad in a lot of ways that I'm realizing a lot of that stuff. And on paper, when people, it's just a loaded term. Existential crisis is a load of meanings and shit that I don't really agree with. And they see it as some negative, like some almost like a form of a depression, or maybe like a mental issue, like a mental illness.
I
I don't
wonder.
think.
I wonder if there's probably millions of people, especially probably between the ages of like 18 and 35, that kind of sort of, I don't know, when you start to go out into the world and really look at things and question things and realize things. I wonder if there's millions and millions of people around the planet that are having an existential crisis right now. And I wonder if it's something to do with the technology that we have, the society that we live in, what we've been taught and like, grown up to believe. Because we're kind of living so far out of our normal realm of, our biological makeup and sort of the little sliver of the slice of like the sort of time, the bar of time which we have been, anatomically modern as humans and how we've been living, in like tribes or, just hunting and gathering, in forests or on plains. And now all of a sudden we've got these big technological cities with fucking Wi-Fi and Costa coffee and just I don't know. I wonder if our base instincts are not being fulfilled at all, and it leads a lot of people to start that process of questioning the little things and questioning what they've been told, and it eventually leads to questioning everything, because maybe there are no objective truths or very little. And I think probably a lot of people, when they do maybe go to full-time work for the first time and for a few years, and then they realize that this doesn't feel quite right, or there's a lot of people out there that have this kind of, like I've been through, like you've been through, a real long period of questioning that you really need to put everything under a microscope and start to try and figure out what is actually really going on in the world. Should we be living like this? Why are these people in charge? Why are these people speaking for me? These are the things that make me happy, but I'm not allowed to do this. These are the things that make me unhappy, but our society seems to naturally gravitate towards the things that, are making life really difficult for people and putting a lot of people in really shit circumstances that, because of money and time and all these other things and commitments, they have to just go through with, even though they're not enjoying it.
Yeah, I think most people, they know what makes them happy, and you know what it is to be fulfilled and happy and content and all the rest of it. And happiness obviously means about 10 different things if you really, if you think about it.
11.
In terms of someone.
Yeah, it means 11 different things. Sorry, I needed to correct you there. Sorry, I did a quick fact check.
Nice, yeah. But it means all sorts of different things, and you know what it is. And then it's like you can feel like you're just playing. Your existence is dictated for you by somebody else, and somebody else that doesn't have your best interests at heart. You know what I mean? That's what it is. WikiHow, right? I love a bit of WikiHow. It says how to deal with an existential crisis, because I was reading this the other day. It was like just a little glimpse into my life here. It says the sense of being alone and isolated in the world, and I feel very alone in the world. I feel very lonely, like very often. That's a big thing that I have. And a grasp and appreciation for somebody else, for some sense of morality, believing that one's life has little purpose or external meaning, aware of one's freedom and the consequences of accepting and rejecting the freedom, and either an extremely pleasurable or hurtful experience that leaves one seeking new meaning in life. And there's like all of that sort of stuff. And I was like, oh, you're fucking kidding. That's perfect. You know what I mean? Absolutely perfect for what it is. But when people talk about existential crisis like that, and all those things, like my life, a lot of your life is decided by other people, other institutions that don't have your best interests at heart. You know what it is to be fulfilled and happy and all the rest of it as a person. And you can't have it. It was never on the table. Do you know what I mean? And then instead of the things that tick the boxes for you, in terms of like sex and relationships and having love and things in your life, instead you've got material goods, bullshit, the illusion of progress in your life, and a job that you hate, and having to turn up 9 to 5 at your best hours of the day for people that don't respect you for just less money than you're worth, basically. That is perfect. But like I said, when they speak about it, it seems like a mental illness. It seems like a depression or something that you should combat and fight. And it's not. I think you probably should be having some sort of a existential crisis, really. You probably should be thinking about that sort of shit. And just refocus all your energy on creative outlets and the stuff that does make you happy. There's some stuff you've got to do, but like I said before, I can't accept that sort of shit. I can't do it. And I like when people say, "Oh, you've just got to accept it. That's just how it is." Well, how? Like, how do you accept that?
Like maybe I can accept it for today, or I'll chin up, for the next few hours. But when you're saying you've just got to accept it, are you saying to me I've got to accept it for my entire life, like for my sole existence, like for everything that I get, in this world, which is just my time, my life? I've got to accept it for all of that. I don't know. I'm a solutions guy, though. That's the problem with these kind of things. It's like I don't like to gravitate towards or focus too much on the problem unless I know that I'm going to be able to work out some sort of resolution. Because what's the point otherwise? Like I need to solve the problem. I need to try and find a positive somewhere. I need to at least find the best possible way for me to deal with these kind of thoughts, feelings, and circumstances.
Yeah, that's it, man. I just think like a lot of the time, if you've got a problem, there is, to say there's a problem obviously suggests there's a solution. And I genuinely, I don't know what it is, and that's a problem. That's another problem in and of itself. Like I don't know what it is, and I don't know whether I'm just overcomplicating it by overthinking and over worrying and all the rest of it. Because as lives are fucking fine. You know what I mean? There's no real problems. Like there's nothing that genuinely I'm not in pain, or we have more than enough money all the time and all the rest of it. Like there's never they're never real problems. But in terms of something like meaning or a purpose or something like that, the course of your life is invariably dictated by people and institutions that don't have your best interests at heart, and that really sums it up. And in terms of what you do with that, I can't accept that. What physical steps could I take to accept that other than drug addiction or depression or something? I don't know. Like they're not good routes, man. Like I can't do it. The only thing that I've ever found to be really helpful with any of that sort of shit is to just ignore that sort of have minimal interaction on a daily basis with that sort of stuff, and refocus my energy on creative shit, all the stuff that I love in my life, like girlfriend, family, drugs, my dogs. I mean, do my drugs all day.
Huge pharmaceutical drugs.
Yeah, my drug dogs, all that sort of stuff. Playing guitar, painting my little miniatures, brewing my beer, writing my book, all the rest of it. Like I've got them big things in it. As just as much as possible, just refocus your energy on that sort of stuff. And that's the only thing I found, because people say, well, you just have to. That's just what you've got to do. You've just got to find yourself in these situations. And I say, no, I fucking don't. You can't tell me what I can and can't do. Like that's it.
Well, it's the why. Like we've said before, question everything. Always ask why. I don't like how when we're a child, we're allowed and kind of expected to ask why to everything because we're learning. And then there becomes a point where why is often answered with, that's just because the way it is, or shut up, or stop asking questions. Like I think Chris Ryan said, like as we gravitate, as we get older, we go further and further away from mystery. Like, and if you do want any kind of mystery or questions or anything like that in your life, then you're kind of just swimming upstream. You're fighting against society because they don't want you to ask these kinds of questions. And I kind of like that quote.
Yeah, Chris Ryan's awesome, man. There's excuse me, sorry, I just dropped my phone. There's that one. I think they called it the Shrimp Parade. The ones with Duncan Trussell, Joe Rogan, and Chris Ryan. Dr. Chris Ryan.
So good.
I know you put me onto him, man. You showed me Joe Rogan's podcast. I think you told me that is that you remember that giant bomb cast you told me about? It was one of the first ones. It was how I first got into podcasting, basically. It was through you, man. And you were saying, while you were painting, put them on in the background because they're really interested in that. That one in particular just blew my mind. Like sort of it really did set me down some of these sort of paths of people having these conversations. And then if I said the word flabbergast to you like 10 times during this conversation, you would start seeing it in the world around you, wouldn't you? And it'd seem like a coincidence. Like if we started talking about how things are evil, like banking is evil, because you're thinking about it now, or the concept's well within your head, you're much more likely to then see it in the real world and then push onto it from your mind.
I think there's a phenomenon with pregnant women and couples that like are pregnant. You just start to notice children and pregnant people everywhere.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense.
When you buy a new car, you start to notice that car everywhere. Like I know your girlfriend with that yellow car.
Yeah.
There's like a whole sort of community where people will like wave and beep and stuff when they see that exact same car go past. Just because I would probably miss those. I wouldn't notice them because I'm not looking for them. I'm not thinking about them. But yeah, exactly like you said, that's a definite phenomenon.
Yeah, it is. There's probably a name for it, and we probably don't know it. Probably should have. Like, I'm going to try and find that out.
There'll be a fantastic German word for it, no doubt.
Yeah, compound noun. Like, what is it? What like things you think about seeing in the world. So like, Umweltdenken or something like that. There'll be a thing like world thoughts. Yeah, but you know exactly what I mean. You're going to start seeing that sort of stuff around you, and it's like, as soon as I started listening to them podcasts, and those ones in particular, Duncan Trussell and Chris Ryan, Joe Rogan, I started seeing those things in my life. And like I said, it's not bad. It's not good or bad as such. It's not necessarily meaning. It just broadens things. Like, with this sort of a slightly heightened awareness, you can sort of the negative seem worse and the positive seem better. So good and bad, really. I don't know.
Well, you know, you said with regards to the existential crisis thing, with regards to the adverts thing, I think one really good remedy is to have these kind of conversations about it, because it certainly helps you go through ideas in your mind. It helps you clarify thoughts that you've been having, and maybe it'll correct certain incorrect thoughts that you've been having, or it'll help concrete ones that, you know, other people have similar opinions on. Just through speaking about these things, it's a weird, almost like a weird form of therapy. Like, it sort of helps you understand yourself and the world a bit more, just through having these sort of detailed, long form conversations, which I think, unfortunately, a lot of people don't really have anymore. Like, I love having conversations, whether they're on podcasts or whether they're on, the internet or not, whether they're just on the phone. Whether it's just with the guy on the train that I've sat next to, and he said something and then I've said something back, and then all of a sudden we're in a conversation and it's 2 hours later and I've found out who he is, where he lives, his profession. He's told me, we've shared some things. I enjoy having conversations, and unfortunately that's kind of like some sort of, not a tradition, but like a ritual or something that people seem to be less and less involved with now, because people want little snippets of things. They want like short versions of stuff. They don't really want to, they'll say, how are you, or look at the weather or whatever. But, people are always watching TV whilst they're having conversations, or they're playing video games whilst they're doing it, or, 10 other different things. People don't really ever just sit, and maybe sometimes people will go have a coffee or a bit of food or something. But yeah, I think get your fucking phone away. Don't have all your notifications and browsing Facebook and this, that, and the other when we're having these conversations. That just speak to somebody. Just, get in their head, let them get into yours. Just express some fucking ideas and have a good old chat about life. And it certainly feels better to do that, whether it's with friends or even just like with podcasts, to listen to other people do it. Like, if people have similar mindsets to you, or even contrasting mindsets, it's just interesting to hear people speak.
Yeah, I think a big thing for me was like, you sort of assume that some of the stuff that you do is like you feel guilty about, or you feel like, oh, maybe it's just me that does that, and maybe there's something wrong with me and all the rest of it. And you go around and it's like, actually, we're all pretty much similar. Like, and again, not to keep talking about my business sort of thing, but I meet people from all over the world basically, and we're all very similar. A language might separate you, or like a culture, or a bunch of ideas that float around somebody's head, but essentially we're all the same sort of people. We all agree on certain stuff. A lot of people think and talk and feel the same way about a lot of different things. That, if you can remove, to whatever extent you can remove someone's like cultural conditioning and all the rest of it, that most people are really bloody similar. And sometimes if you listen to people that are speaking that you respect, or that have done stuff that you respect, it's actually like, well, I think that as well. I'm really similar to that. And maybe that's like one of the first, for me anyway, it's one of the first times that I ever really heard somebody that I deeply resonate with that actually speak about that sort of stuff. Because in my actual life, there's very, very few people that I agree with on philosophical or conceptual things. Most people that I've met anyway, it's probably, anecdotal sort of thing, are generally, they're on a different things, with a different mindset, on a different sort of a path in life. So yeah, to meet those people, that's massive. To feel like there's other people in the world that are like you, is like, that's such a big thing. And to realize that your little neurotic, your little ticks, your little things are just a part of it, just a part of your human experience. And some of those things, especially like like Duncan Trussell in particular, because he's a bit spiritual, a bit of a hippie and that. Like it resonates with me in a lot of ways, and it has. But it's been important. It's been important for me in a lot of ways to actually get to see other people in life that think a similar way about certain stuff, or that act in a certain way, and it stops you feeling like you're the only one, or like you're a bit weird, even though it's that's it was obviously never like that in the first place, but you can feel sort of isolated or a bit alone, like that wiki how thing was saying. Yeah. And actually, it's really important to realize that you're very similar to a lot of people.
Definitely. Yeah, I think that I'd like to actually do an episode as a topic at some point. Don't know when, but just on the whole idea of podcasting, of modern conversations, of whether it be let's plays or something, just interacting with people in these in the internet age, like with YouTube and other things, like, and how podcast has been a big one for me, like whether it be people that are inspirational in the health industry, like the Model Health Show, whether it be the Joe Rogan Experience, and not necessarily just because of Joe Rogan himself, but all the different guests that he has on, and what a fucking beacon of light that has been into so many people, just to get things from a different way. Like, we don't have to get the information from a newspaper or from the news or from your parents. You can actually see some ideas and some perspectives and some ways of looking at it from people halfway around the world, that maybe it's not just me that's had those kind of thoughts. It's kind of normal to question things. And I think I'd like to do something on podcasting in general. It'd be nice to do a topic on that.
Podcasting and let's plays as well is like a really big one. So yeah, we'll have a think about that. What do you reckon about existential crisis, man?
How do I feel about it?
Yeah, about doing an episode on it soon.
Yeah.
Not next, but like,
Yeah, let's do it. That'd be good.
Sweet. I've really got to get going. I'm busting for a piss for a start, but I've also got some go get some food, man.
Just let it out, man. Golden shower.
Yeah. Just piss myself, man. What are you talking about?
Yeah. You could probably sell it on the internet. And then maybe get some blueprints of it, and then we can all print off some of your piss.
Yeah. So to sum up the 3D printing thing, I know we've not spoken about it too much, just spoke about it a little bit more. They're calling it the second industrial revolution. You're going to be able to print off organs, medicine, food, by the looks of it, like robots, guns, all the rest of it. So far now, you can 3D print in gold, silver, platinum, metal, glass, nylon, epoxy resin, ceramic, wax, as well as 4 or 5 different types of plastic. In my profession as well, it's going to revolutionize miniature wargaming, because you can 3D print your own miniatures as opposed to having to buy them and all the rest of it. They're going to microtransact. They're going to use microtransactions to basically create blueprints for things that you'll then print off. Shapeways, for example, is a custom 3D printing business with independent artists sell their 3D designs to people via Shapeways, and then Shapeways print out their designs and ship them direct to the customer all over the world. And you can buy a 3D printer now for £50 to £100. They're only printing plastic. They're like sort of 100 mils or whatever, 10 centimeters long. But in the future, mate, that is going to revolutionize all sorts of different stuff. The same sort of demands for material products are going to be the same, I presume. That people are going to want, we're going to consume similar food and various like physical items.
Who knows what the ramifications are going to be, though? It could be the first carving of a different sort of stream. It could really change everything.
Yeah, God knows, man. That's crazy, isn't it? But just in terms of it being the second industrial revolution, like I said, I feel like a system that just like it comes out, it's perfect, it's the perfect time, perfect product, perfect price, perfect capabilities, perfect everything, and it's going to be just right for like the working class man or lady in the Western sort of culture, and then that's it. And it's going to take off, and then before you know it, you won't go to a shop anymore. You'll buy the same products, but you'll just print them off and not have to go anywhere. And crazy.
When you said about 3D printing, one of the main questions that I had when I started thinking about the sort of stuff you could print off is, will there be some sort of legal copyright or like restriction if I want to print off like an exact replica of like Morgan Freeman's cock and balls? Like, or will there be a restriction? So say maybe, for example, Morgan Freeman has a 9-inch penis or something like that. What if I want a 16-inch version of Morgan Freeman's cock and balls? will that be allowed? That was the first thing that I thought when you mentioned 3D printing, and I imagine the first thing that most people probably started to think about.
So I don't think there'll be any restrictions on any of that stuff happening. I think they'll try and create one out of nothing. There won't be anything there like there isn't now. There isn't anything to begin with, but the industry that's trying to protect its interests, trying to replicate the same conditions now that made the money, by intellectual property, by legal problems, suing people, litigations, all the rest of it. And they're going to try and bring that mindset. And I don't know, because I can't predict the future, but I hope that in the future people will get together in the same vein that pirating, the war on drugs, all that sort of stuff. People living by their own laws, people living by their own rules, people having their own ethical system where money's not right at the top and all the rest of it. Even though that's what society tells you and it's material this and material that. Many people don't believe. You just live your own life. I think exactly the same sort of things. And my idealistic view on it, I'm very optimistic that there's going to be a lot of piracy, and that ultimately it's going to bring a lot of fucking power into just the everyday person's life, where you've got this machine, this thing. Eventually, if it's not too much like market pressure and shit, but you can have this thing in your house that you can produce food and medicine and technology and all these little material little bits that you need for stuff, and you're just going to be able to produce it in your house. And a big part of that is not that you'll be able to get these I'm calling them blueprints. I don't know what they'll be. Little you'll be able to buy the files for the 3D printed objects that the printer will then print out, the little files for it. But also the next couple of generations of people that will grow up with 3D printing and grow up synonymously, or symbiotically, if you want, with the 3D printing technology, will be fucking wizards at being able to design their own designs. And then you'll be able to print your own stuff out. And instead of having to buy anything, you'll be able to design and print something really quickly that's very similar. And that will completely undermine the value of these designs anyway, which is going to take a lot of power out of the hands of small, really big corporations that are actually very concentrated. And it's going to redistribute that amongst the people, which just in terms of the sort of philosophical or the thoughtful angle is such a massive step forward in society, such a massive step forward in empowering and giving people, like the everyday person, like the working class people all over the world, a reason to not be bound financially or whatever else to these corporations that don't have ethics in mind. And I think that's what it is. It's going to be that shift towards that it's going to be actually massive step forward in terms of equality and in terms of people being like equal in society and all the rest of it. And as such, I predict, and again, I ain't got a fucking clue what's going to happen. Like logically, I know it's already well established 3D printing, but I reckon there's going to be massive. There's going to be a horrible backlash from those people with money, trying to either criminalize people, trying to sue on all that legal shit, and then when that fails, not if but when, they will begin to morally attack people, turn people against each other, using the power of whatever it is, propaganda and thought, to make people, to immoralize people for doing that sort of shit. And then eventually, and again, I don't know, but fingers crossed, people will fucking realize and just do it anyway. Just fuck them, and then that's it.
Well, I'll back that. I'll put some money on that pony. Well, let's do another episode on this exact thing in like 5 years' time and see where we're at.
Yeah, 3D printing episode 2 or whatever it is.
Yeah. It got to
revisited
like October 2016, which is like a few days after this podcast went out, and yeah, it fell away and nobody's interested in it anymore. Just for whatever reason, people don't care.
I get imprisoned for fucking crimes against humanity for resisting technology.
Yeah. But yeah, man. Well, it's been awesome talking to you. I love this conversation. As always,
dude. It's been cool, man. It's we didn't talk about 3D printing too much, but another really interesting conversation, mate.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, cool. We'll see you next time.
All right, Sam, man. I'll see you in a bit.
Bye.